love a back scenes sort of glimpse into what things are going on. And today's episode is a really special one where we're going to take you back behind the scenes to learn all about both how Amplify started and who we have as speakers. You don't want to miss this one.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Hi, I'm Margie Schaller, and I am host of the Sober Life Rocks podcast. And I just want to stop for a second and say that we're taping this the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm so full of gratitude for this woman, Laura Nelson, who is my partner in Sober Life Rocks, because she is, first of all, so sweet and so loving. And she doesn't describe herself as that, but she is. But she makes me a better person. And she's the one who originally said I needed to be hosting a podcast. And I was like, I don't know anything about podcasting. But it turns out that I love it. And I love talking to all of you guys. I love our guests. But I just wanted to express appreciation and gratitude for Laura and for all that we've done together. So Laura Nelson is co-founder with me of Sober Life Rocks. And truly, if I want to describe the dynamic between the two of us, I think that Laura is the visionary. Laura is the strategist. Laura is the one who sees what's not possible yet. And then I come around and put the scaffolding around it and make it go. So Laura, welcome to the program.
Well, I didn't expect that amazing intro. That's the best intro I've ever had on a podcast. So thank you. And I am so thankful for you. I am already so thankful for our event that hasn't even happened, because I feel like this is just what we both needed to fill our cup. And I hope that everybody else feels that way too at the end of this. So thank you for taking the first step to do this podcast. And I feel honored to be a guest on your podcast because I've been trying to interview people on other things and I suck at it. You're so good. So I'm excited to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we kind of dive into some of the more nitty gritty, I really wanted to take you back to the moment that we conceived of Amplify Sober Voices. Because again, describing you as the strategist and the visionary, how did this all start? How did it all come to be?
Well, I think you and I, in our own paths, our own journeys, felt like we had a voice. We wanted to do something, and we've been trying to figure out what that is. But when I think it hit for me was we were at Podfest, and we had talked to so many people up to that point in the sober space, like trying to grow what our mission was going to be and what our voice was going to be and how we were going to make a difference. And being at Podfest, we both saw the light, I think, of we can help this message by bringing people together. I mean, that's Podfest. The energy around Podfest was podcasters all coming together who work alone in their studios, in their places, interviewing people, but it was time for them to fill their cup up. And that's what Podfest is about, is really giving to them. So I think we both kind of saw the light. I don't know if we saw it at the same time, but just the idea that this is what we could do to help this movement is bring these amazing people together.
So I remember something slightly different.
Oh, all right. Well, what was yours?
we were sort of toying with the idea of some kind of conference, and we had talked about it early on, and we were thinking maybe we would do it on our own, and then maybe we would bring some other people in. And then we got into a group of people who we were like, let's do a wellness conference and include sober journeys. And we started like pricing out the possibilities of what that would look like. And the ticket price was, the price was outrageous to put on your own conference. And we were like, okay, so we're not doing that. And I kind of feel like it had been backburnered, and we were both a little discouraged about that.
I think it's so funny because that's the difference between us, because all of those pre-conversations to me were like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Nope, that didn't work. Throwing spaghetti at the wall. I didn't even it doesn't even resonate in my story because I'm like, well, we moved on from that. It came on that first day. That's so funny that you remember that. That's all true.
And then we were at Podfest, and I don't know, I was talking to somebody, and you come running up, and your eyes are like huge, and you're like, we have to talk. And so you grab me, and we're like, we're doing it here. We're going to do a conference here.
See, none of that other stuff happened for me. Like all the other stuff was just, yeah, it happened at Podfest. No, you're right, for sure. Yep.
And you told me just briefly about it, and I was like, okay, we're in. And that's kind of how our relationship is like you come running at me with these ideas. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So then we started kind of brainstorming. And I feel like pretty quickly, we talked about the fact that in these conversations we've been having with people, they've said things like, I've always wanted to do my own podcast, but I just don't even know how to get started. Or we talked to a number of people, they were like, I really want to get on stage. I want to do my own TED Talk, or I want to speak at my own industry events. I just don't know how to get started. And that's where I think we came up with the idea of the subject areas that we're going to cover. But do you remember when we started brainstorming who we were going to have as speakers?
I was going to do a shout out for you because, and this is part of when we're at the event, what I want to talk about. We have people in our ecosystems that we follow, that we look up to and stuff. And so I knew a couple people that I was like, I really want them to be at our event. But you went out and hunted down people. You looked at people who have made an impact, such an impact in this. And so the brainstorming, I came with like 2 or 3. I'm like, I know who to call. You came with a list and you were like, what about this person? What about that person? We need to have it. It needs to be balanced of male, female. It needs to be different. And so I kind of remember, I think you did a lot more of the homework, which is why we have such an amazing lineup of speakers, because I mean, I'm just meeting 1 or 2 of the speakers face to face, and they're freaking amazing. So I kind of remember, but I bet you have more scaffolding to that memory than I do.
We had like this wish list spreadsheet.
You had a wish list spreadsheet. You had a wish list spreadsheet. I had some Instagram accounts where I was like, oh, how about this person?
Yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to Rhett. So Rhett is one of the members of our team, and he really has been both the podcast expert with contacting all of our podcast guests and following up with everything, as well as our Amplify, like everything. He's all behind the scenes stuff.
And he is so in the trenches right now of getting this right. 100% I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. And so we started out with this wish list, but he's the one who started going and just looking at who's been in this the longest and who really has made an impact. And from there, then you and I would talk about it, and then we would start to reach out and interview people. And early on, we were reaching pretty high, and we had some no's. But one of the people we're going to talk about today was one of our early guesses. And
I'm gonna say that we had some no's, but we never had anyone say no because they didn't think it was a good idea or want to be there. I think a lot of it was, schedule conflict and stuff. But the idea of this event, I think everybody is like, wow, this is a great idea. This has never happened. This is what's needed. So I just want to point that out.
Everybody.
And hopefully the no's will be there next year if we do it again.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is many of them were like, I can't this year because of, but keep me in mind. And we've had people reach out to us who want to be speakers, and we're so excited by that. And we'd love to, have this wish list for next year and talk about it for next year. But, but the criteria really was they've been there, done that, have this area of genius, and have some things to share along the way that will help shorten other people's learning curves. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about 5 of those speakers today, and then we're going to talk about our other 5 next week. So to start with, I want to kick off with somebody who has just been so enthusiastic, so all in with us from the get-go, and that's Shane Reamer from That Sober Guy.
For sure. This guy, I don't know how I didn't know about him when I started on my sober journey. Like, I just want more of him. So yeah, please tell his bio, but amazing guy, amazing energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, his claim to fame is That Sober Guy podcast. And I remember when I had him on my podcast. So all of the people who we're talking about today, we've done podcasts with, if you want to go and listen to those. But I remember we were talking about when he got sober, He did a 12-step program. But there was a time when he was commuting 2 hours each way to and from work. And he was losing his mind. I've commuted an hour and a half each way, and it's brutal. I mean, you can only listen to so much radio, right?
Mhm.
And so a friend of his said, what if you start listening to audiobooks? And he was like, all right. And he ended up getting one of these inspirational, motivational, like life coachy sort of people. And he said it was filling him up. And he was so eager each day to get in his car to like be fed in this way that was outside of the 12-step stuff, but still like helping him become a better man, helping him become a better person, helping him become a better father. And he said it just changed his life, changed his trajectory. And so then he started looking to see maybe there's people like that who are talking about their sober journeys. And sure, there are AA speaker talks, but there wasn't anybody in the space doing that kind of thing. And a buddy of his is like, you ought to start a sober podcast. And he said, what's a podcast? Because this was back when podcasts were, like
Not in the thousands like now.
No. And so he started searching for podcasts and listened to a couple of the inspirational ones, but couldn't find any that were just focused on the sober journey.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't think anything of it. He just kept listening to inspirational stuff. And then one day he said he woke up in the middle of the night and it was literally like just this bolt of knowing. And the next morning he talked to his wife and he said, I think I need to start a sober podcast. And his wife looked at him and said, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he started.
And you come from a time where this was a time when there wasn't a lot of people out there talking about their sobriety, right? Like I got sober in 2020. It's a very different time frame. For him to do that, and a shout out to you that we wanted male speakers on our stage to be a male person talking about their real life stuff. Such a profound thing to do at the time that he did.
Mm-hmm. And his podcast really is focused on the man's journey. I mean, people listen to it, men and women, but I think he speaks to that masculine journey where admitting defeat or going out with the guys and not feeling cool because you're not doing shots or, all the things that we all tell ourselves, but I think particularly for men, it's a real challenge. And that's really what he focuses on, is reaching out to those men to be like, hey, you can totally be the most manly man and be sober. Mm-hmm. And you can be an amazing father and you can be, a great husband and you can be a great partner. So I love his podcast. I love what he does. But he's really going to kind of come and bring that that historical view of what it was like back then, but also what he's done to maintain that momentum, what he's done to create this unbelievable following and stay fresh.
And I want to, for those that maybe listen to the podcast but don't know this, I'm going to do a little background secret thing about you. So, Margie, you are a speaker coach, and your whole career has been helping people find their voice, be able to help me when I go on the stage talking about inclusive event planner. And what you have done with these speakers, I'm so excited about, because we're doing TED Talk style presentations. What we don't want is a long day where everybody just sits and listens to speakers. We want this to be actionable conversations. But you have gone with each one of these speakers and kind of pulled out what is their main thing. So I love hearing that that's what he wants to talk about, because people might be thinking of starting a podcast, but they're like, but he's been doing this for so long. Of course he's got a big following, right? But like, he's got to maintain it. He's got to keep that momentum going. So I love that that's what he's going to be talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, I'll speak for myself. I often struggle with thinking like, how much new is there to say? How much more unique things can I bring to this space? And fortunately, I have a guest format where I can hear each person's unique story. But when you've had a podcast as long as he has, and he does a lot of his like individually, and then he has some guests as well. And so really, like, how do you keep that fresh? And how do you keep the momentum in that?
So I'm going to jump all around like I normally do, right? I'm not going to follow the scaffolding outline of this. I am interviewing all of our speakers. I have been interviewing our speakers for social media posts so people can see who our speakers are and get to know them. And I feel the same way you do in the sense of like, well, what hasn't been said already? Like what it's people, books are written and podcasts are. Well, I was on with Andy Ramage yesterday, who's one of our other speakers, and he said something to me where I was like, duh, but like, duh, like I needed to hear it. Our algorithms, because we're in this space, we're getting fed all of the sober, alcohol free, there's all these great things. And that we think the world is full of this and everybody knows it. But he talked about how we're just at the beginning of a wave. And there's a whole bunch of people who haven't heard this and don't know. And so for anybody listening to this who's like, well, there's enough people out there. There's enough speakers out there. There's not. There's literally not. And he got me really excited. And I'm on the forefront of this and going, oh my gosh, we're just starting this wave. So so I love that because some people have been doing this for a very long time, which is why we've selected them. But there's so
let's
much
talk
more.
about Andy because Andy is amazing. Andy Ramage,
Yeah.
he's from England. And I remember talking to him on our podcast, and he talked about that he never kind of hit that rock bottom. He didn't flame out. He was in the middle of a very successful job as a commodities broker, and he was like the life of the party. People loved going to his dinners and stuff. And he said he woke up one morning and looked in the mirror and just didn't like what he saw. The extra weight and the bleary eyes and the skin swollen. And he said from a health point of view, he was just like, this has got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So when he quit drinking, it was actually about kind of becoming that better person for his job. But he was also terrified that people weren't going to love him and do business with him if he wasn't the life of the party. His story is that he sort of was journaling and kind of keeping notes to himself. And then one day his daughter sat down next to him and he's like, what are you doing? And he looked at his daughter and he said, I'm writing a book. Like he didn't know what else to describe to her because she was so young. And his daughter's eyes lit up and she was like, that's cool. So he said he wrote this book from his journal notes and he sent it off to a publisher. And the publisher wrote back and said, that's crap.
That's awesome.
And so that was the end of that for a period of time. But what evolved was that he started putting things out there. And he ended up creating that book as a Word document saved into a PDF that he just put on his website for free. And he said he got so many people like responding to it. And he said that to him was the turning point to where he realized he could be a voice for good, not for people who had collapsed at the end of their rope, but for people who were, we call them high functioning now, but people who were doing their lives and just didn't want that heavy weight.
Mm-hmm. He actually, in our interview yesterday, we talked about this. Little plug, because he also has a documentary coming out in 2026. It's called goingdrymovie.com if you want to check it out, goingdrymovie.com. And it's an amazing documentary. So he believes
so excited to see it.
We're at the beginning. But he said something to me, again, part of the reason I'm excited about this conference is because we think we know it in our bubble, but people, you get this, somebody just says one thing and you're like, I never thought about it that way. He was talking about people being physically addicted to alcohol, physically, like, real addiction. Not that everything's not addiction. We know it's alcohol use disorder. But now there's this psychological addiction to alcohol. Like you do it at weddings, you drink at parties. And when people start to realize maybe this isn't good for my health, when they start trying to, they're going to realize that they may not be technically addicted physically. It might not be, but they are psychologically addicted. And how do I drink a glass of tea instead of a beer after work or whatever? And that's where anybody who's coaches, potential coaches, speakers, this is where coming and getting your message out there is going to be so helpful because there's going to be a lot of people in the future who are looking to get alcohol out of their life. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was so
And
inspirational. He's amazing.
he is amazing. And he's coming to act to us actually as a podcaster
Mhm.
because he has, again, this huge podcast where he's just talked about the real stuff.
Mhm.
And he's ended up getting training as a coach. And so he coaches people both in business and in life and in sobriety. But one of the things that I wrote down about him was that, kind of to your point, it's about building better beliefs
Mhm. Mhm.
and that everything that we do, we have a choice of what those beliefs are.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he's dynamic, he's exciting,
And he's got that great British accent, so he's
he
really
does.
fun to listen to. He's coming from England. I'm also fangirling a little bit because I listen to Richard Roll podcast. I'm not a podcast person, but I listen to Richard Roll. I love his when I'm out walking and trying to be healthy. And he weaves in 12 steps because he's been in the 12-step program. And Andy Ramage has been on Richard Roll's podcast. He used to listen to it. He's been on it twice. So now I figure we're only 2 degrees. Once I give Andy Ramage a hug at the event, I'm only 2 degrees away from Richard Roll, which is awesome too.
Fantastic.
Right,
Well,
right.
speaking of British, my fangirl moment was Rhett found out that Janey Lee Grace is sober. Now, Janey Lee Grace used to be a backup singer for Wham and Boy George, and she actually had her own hit single back in the day. And from there, she went on to be on one of the BBC morning shows, radio shows. And you know how we have them in America, right? Where it's like the zoo. There's the straight guy and the funny guy, and then there's the person who does kind of the color, like individual stories. And that was Janey. And she was on there for like, I don't know, 18 years. So she's well known in England. And we got the opportunity to talk to her. And the night before, I was so nervous to ask her to be part of Amplify. I was like spinning in my head, how do I talk to this person? How do I talk to this news person, this musician? And the reason why we reached out to her is because she also has a TED Talk that has had millions of views on being sober. So the day came and she comes on and she is so nice. She is so nice and she's just like you and me. She's a mother, she's a wife, she has her businesses, she's like a multiple time entrepreneur. And without even hesitating, she was like, I am so interested. I just need to figure out my calendar and the travel from England and all that. But she was very interested from the get-go. And she reached out like 2 weeks later. She's like, I'm in. So uh, I was just blown away that this woman agreed to be part of Amplify.
So I'm interested in how you explained Amplify to them or to her when you started, because I think it's important I mean, we've been talking about Amplify, but you were nervous going in. How did you explain it to her to get her to see our vision?
Yeah, I think really those conversations were centered around the fact that there are people behind them who look up to them, who want to one day have the impact that they're having. And that we really wanted to have this be in person because we believe that the power is going to be in the networking and the collaboration and the sharing of tips and tricks and ideas. Um, and so I told her, I said, you have this amazing background, this amazing resume, and people might think that they can't do what you've done because they don't have that resume, they don't have that background. And she looked at me and she's like, well, why not?
Yeah, right. That's her energy for sure.
And I said, well, then that's what you need to come and talk to people about. And she was
Hmm.
like, oh, that's a
Hmm.
really good idea.
Hmm. Actually, and that's a really good point about that too, because I think a lot of people, we all talk about this. We have our own story of getting out of alcohol or addiction or out of drugs or whatever it is. And we all had our own story going in. And we just think that our story is like, well, everybody can do that, right? I was guilty of this. Starting to work with you was a big growth thing for me because I say I got sober on TikTok. I started following these people. I'm like, but there's a whole journey of people who everybody's different ways and so to be able to share your story, it will click with somebody in the audience that goes, huh, why can't I do that?
Mhm.
Or why I could try. And so not so much on the area of getting sober, but starting a book or speaking or writing about it. So I just love that where she goes, why not? Well, not everybody thinks the way Janey Lee does. So that's
No, but
awesome.
she does have a passion, and this is her coaching program. She does have a passion for people stepping into what is the next thing.
Hmm.
Once you've gotten sober, now what? And
Hmm.
she really encourages people to use their voice. Um, she, like me, was secretly sober for the first long time of her sobriety because she's got that public persona and she would go to these charity events and all the things that she was invited to. And so she didn't want to have people judge her.
Hmm.
And so, because of that, she's so passionate now about helping all of us break the stigma. And that's when she went to do her TED Talk. That's what it was about, was like, it's not something that we need to be ashamed of.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
love that message.
Exactly. So I feel like we're going on to the ones that have been doing this the longest, or
Hmm.
or have had took the first steps for the rest of us who are moving forward. So who else do we have on that agenda of early
Oof.
adopters?
So Toni Will,
Mm.
she is a little bit
I just
out
wait.
of
I just want to say she's one that I found. Everybody up to this point, you guys went and hunted down, but I have one in case anybody's keeping score. Tony Will,
yeah,
yeah.
1,000%. And she's one that's in a slightly different mold because she's not first and foremost a sober fill in the blank. She's not a sober, podcaster first or a sober coach first. She broke her barriers as the first and only woman GM of a professional hockey team,
Hmm.
which is crazy to me. Like, I look up to that and think, what a trailblazer.
Hmm.
Such
For
a
sure.
male dominated, not only sport, but even a lot of the fans are men.
Hmm.
And when she was on our podcast, I remember her talking about what it was like to navigate that space
Hmm.
sober.
Yes, and she has a whole mission. Her mission is help. I mean, she was one of the first ones that reached out to us and said, "You're doing a conference I'm in. What can I do?" Which is amazing. But that's just her personality. She's doing the same for women in sports. Like
Mhm.
that's her passion is empowering women in sports and leading that mission. But now she's also women in sports and sober. So there's the
Mhm.
double. And that's kind of the theme through the conference too, is like a lot of this is our passion, this sober part of our life, but integrating it into the everyday part of your life, right?
Mhm.
Whatever your purpose is. I don't know if you know this about her, but she and I met. We both went through Annie Grace's, which we'll talk about. We went through her program, and I walked in the room and I met a couple of people, and it was a 5-day event. Within the first hour, people are like, "Have you met Toni Will?" You and Toni Will are a lot of like, "Have you met Toni Will?" And it took us about 4 days to fight because there were so many people there to cross paths finally. But literally, I think she's cut from the same cloth as I am. And
Mhm.
people are like, "You two need to come together. Like you guys need to." And I'm so stoked that we're going to be on the same stage together because she's just a force to be reckoned with. She's so inspirational to me. I listened to the podcast with you, and I got all like put myself in her shoes. I could hear her story. Like she's just amazing. So I'm just thrilled that she's on the stage with us.
Uh-huh. And what we have her speaking about is she's going to be in the category of influencer. And when you
Mhm.
hear influencer, we think, oh, the social media influencer who, shells
Thousands of
other
followers
people,
and stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And shills for other people's products or whatever. Our idea of influencer is somebody who is a change maker in their environment. That could be on social media, but it could be within their work environment. It could be that they're building a community. It could be that they're a coach. I mean, it could be anything. And so we thought Toni, particularly with being such a change maker in sports, but also she now has a conference of her own. She has a podcast of her own. She's a coach in the sober space. Um, she is the ultimate in being an influencer.
Hmm. And I was going to mention too, and it's funny as we're starting to talk to all of these, and this will come out at the event. She also has a book coming out.
Mhm.
And each one of you hear a lot of these people, they have a podcast, they're a speaker, they have a book but each one of them loves one of these things more than the other. Sounds like a kid's thing, Sesame Street, right? But they love podcasting, but they didn't really like writing the book, but they did it. Or they love speaking, but they didn't. I'm one of them, right? I love speaking, but I wrote a book. So it'll be great to hear how some people flourish in some areas, and other areas they like drudge through it, and then we can sit and work through those kind of things, because there might be something in anybody listening to this who are like, I really want to do something, but it feels hard. Great, let's help
Yeah.
you get through that, because everybody seems to have in different areas. So
Speaking of which, if you
yeah.
go to the Sober Life Rocks website, there is a survey that we put together. It's sort of like one of those old, Cosmo magazine things where you answer a list of questions. And from that comes out a description of you and which of the 4 styles you might most naturally fit into, whether it's podcasting, speaking, writing, or influencing.
Mhm.
So all you should do is go to soberliferocks.com, you take the survey, and then you'll be emailed the results. And it's really kind of fun. We've all
Well,
taken it and it came out correct.
which to background story for anybody listening, Margie 5 years ago probably wouldn't have come out as a podcaster, but Margie now, who is part of this mission and has found her voice and is amazing at podcasting. So, but yeah, it's great. I think I did mine. It says I'm a speaker, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right, who else do we have?
Oh, the last one is somebody that I'm deeply, deeply honored and so amazed by, and that's Lisa Smith. Lisa Smith got sober, I think it was like also 17, 18 years ago, back in the day when we didn't talk about it. She's an attorney in New York, and she was a very high-powered attorney at a very high-powered, what do they call those practices? Law practice. And when she got sober, she didn't tell anybody. And she said to me on the podcast, she's like, I love reading autobiographies and memoirs because I feel like it's sort of this glimpse into how did somebody become who they were. And so a couple of years into her sobriety, she started looking around for memoirs about people who got sober. And there were none.
Mm,
None.
mhm.
Because we didn't talk about it then. And because the only messaging was from 12-step programs that talked about anonymity. And back then that was like taken very seriously. You just didn't talk about that stuff. And she also is a journaler. And she started looking at her journals and thinking, maybe there's somebody like me out there who wants to get sober and doesn't have anybody to look at.
Mm.
And maybe I need to turn this journaling into a memoir that somebody else like me could look at and see. And so she wrote Girl Walks Out of a Bar.
Mhm.
And I'm just in awe of that kind of trailblazing in that sort of position, in that sort of high stakes environment, taking the risk to do that. And so when I heard her story, I knew she had to be part of Amplify because we all feel that little, catch, that little anxiety, that little, oh God, what's going to happen to my life if
Mhm.
somebody like her doing that?
Mhm. So I'm very excited about what energy is going to be in the room and how everybody's played some part of somebody's, not everybody, but there's people in the room who played a part of your sober journey. So you just talked about how you found Janey Lee Grace and you were nervous the night before to talk to her and how she, the conversation you had. When I asked her, when I asked Janey Lee Grace, who are you most excited to see in the room? Like, who are you? And she said, Girl Walks Out of a Bar book had the hugest impact in her sober journey, and she couldn't wait to meet Lisa. Like there's Toni, I met her through Annie. Like there's going to be so many stories that are intertwined into each other's stories because people took the first step, because they showed up, because they wrote their book, because they did a TED Talk, right? So that's just for me, that's I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the fact that they impacted each other and they've never met. They've never met in person. So it's going to be amazing. Who in this room, I'm going to go off script here a little. Who in this room are you like kind of fangirling to meet in person? Like you've talked to everybody on the TED on your podcast, but like
I
when you
think
walk in the room,
Lisa's
yeah.
right up there. Yeah. I think that there's something about that level of risk taking.
Mm,
Um, I mean, Janey Lee also had the same risk
mm,
taking with her public persona, but Lisa was in the middle of her career,
mm,
and in actuality, what happened was because she got sober, um, she applied for a stretch job that she never would have even thought to apply for back when she was drinking and using. But
mm,
she was able to apply and then get that job at
mm,
another firm. And she was there for 10 years before this book got put together. And so they had never known her as anything besides sober, but she
mm,
didn't tell them she was sober. They knew her for who she was. And when she went in to tell the managing partner, like, hey, I've done this thing. I've written this book and it's going to be coming out in the next month. And I hope you're okay.
mm,
And the managing partner was like, I'm 100% on board. I support you so much, but there
mm,
may be people who don't.
mm,
Just know I've got your back.
mm. That's so amazing. What a great leader.
Mhm,
Mm,
mhm. But even so, even with all of that support, like it was a risk. And
mhm,
so, because my story is about the fact that I didn't take that risk for so long,
mhm.
I'm just so excited to meet her.
That's awesome. Like I said, I got sober in 2020 where it was a different, it's okay to be talking. I mean, it wasn't an anonymity time, but I still remember I didn't talk about it for a couple of years in my industry. And I remember the first time somebody stopped me in the hotel I was at a conference and they said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I'm following you on TikTok," which is where I was going for my sober. And my heart dropped because I thought, oh my gosh, somebody knows I'm sober. And that's really kind of the what ignited this for me with Sober Life Rocks, where it's 2022 or 3 now, and I still felt like, oh no, somebody in my industry knows I'm sober. And like that's internal work that we have to do, right? Of like being okay with your choices are
Mhm.
your choices, right? And we don't care what's in your cup, but we've got to speak up, we've got to get it out there, we've got to amplify this so that it just does become normal, because Lisa did that and Janey Lee did that and you and I are doing it, and there are people after us who are listening
Yep.
to your podcast and other podcasts going, I need to speak up. And it may not be a TED talk, it might just be in your community or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think we
Yep.
all have that. We still all have that feeling of like, oh no. But let's
Yeah.
get to the point where we don't have that anymore, right?
Who's the one that you're fangirling that you can't wait to meet?
I think I'm fangirling on everyone, but I can't wait to meet Elise Bryson, which we'll talk
Mhm.
about in
Yep.
the next group of speakers. But she just has that. She's a speaker. She has that just kind of like rare comfortability about just she's just her in her own
Yeah.
skin. But when you listen to her interview, again, go listen to the interviews, that when she's interviewing with you on the podcast, she didn't have that her whole
Hmm.
time. She
Yep.
she you know we it came out over time, and now she's just her and everything. But I'm really looking forward to being around her energy.
Yeah.
But Andy Ramage, when I was with him yesterday, it was the best Thanksgiving I could have yesterday because I met with him first and I got all pumped up again. So
Yeah.
but yeah, for sure, Elise, I think would be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about the next five speakers next week. But I wanted to say that the reason I picked these five first was because I feel like these five broke barriers. And that's really what I wanted to start off with, was the people who broke these barriers, who came in and did things that they didn't see out there that hadn't been done, or changed how they interacted with the world around them. Not because all of us have to be barrier breakers, but because I think that we all can learn from what that journey looked like.
I'm going to add something here, and I don't know if you meant to have this in the next one or not, but I'm going to throw in a name and just a quick story because I know it really well. But I'm going to add Annie Grace to this list of trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason the first book I read after I got sober was This Naked Mind. it changed my life. It changed my perspective of where I was in my life with my relationship with alcohol. And the reason I'm bringing it up is she very much like others that you've said, she put hers out, her book, she wrote it, her journal out, she put it on the internet because nobody would publish it, put it on the internet and had thousands and thousands of people afterwards going, I feel the same way. I want to figure this out too. I want to do this. And so I'm putting this plug out there because Annie has just written her newest book. And we're excited to talk about it when we're there. And there might be a special gift for those who join us live in person. So I'm just going to add her to the kind of the trailblazer list. We could talk more about her, but I think a lot of people potentially do know Annie Grace in This Naked Mind too. So
Yeah,
she's
I can't wait to
definitely
dig into her more.
Yeah, she's definitely in that same group of the ones who went out there and kind of helped start this movement. So yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of finish this podcast with just some questions to ponder for you, the listeners. That first of all, do you belong in this room? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be there to meet all these people yourselves? The answer is yes. But I think that also I want you to think about what part of your own journey mirrors something that you've heard us talk about with one of these speakers. Or what would happen if you would share something meaningful about your sober journey with one person that you trusted before the year ends? Or who could you be if you stepped into one of these areas and started normalizing your sober journey and your sober choices, even a little bit?
I'm going to add one more thing because this is coming out, this podcast, around Christmas, end of the year. I remember being in this position many times in the past where dry January I meant it. I was going into dry January, things were going to change. Had I had the opportunity to walk into a room on January 15th of dry January and hear some of these talks and meet some of these people, I might have stopped drinking years before because I did dry January a lot. This is not that this is about getting sober, but if your story is you do see in the future that this is the journey you're on, your path you're on, this conference could be the conference that you need to have it stick. So I'm just going to throw that out there too, because I know we come into the end of the year and we have New Year's resolutions and all the things. And if this has been a repetitive message in your story, you're all welcome to be here too. We don't care what's in your cup. If you're drinking or not, we don't care. These people are amazing and you want to be in the room with us.
1,000%. So it's January 15th in Orlando at Podfest. And the way you get tickets is go to amplifysobervoices.com. And Laura and I cannot wait to meet you and cannot wait to meet all the people who are going to be in the room. And I want to wish you a good holiday season, no matter what you celebrate, and send you our love. Laura, thank you for being with me for this. And I can't wait to speak next week about the next half of our speakers.
I'm so excited. And everybody in the meantime, go back and listen to the podcast because they're also super amazing. Thank you, Margie.